Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Iron Purpose Podcast. This episode, I talked to a professional bodybuilder. He's also a full-time firefighter, coach of various different things when it comes to physical fitness, and he's also a drummer. We also talk about some of his passions, including his faith and what it was like growing up in sports and what he was able to do with that in turning into his career today. Had a wonderful time speaking with him. This is episode 2 of the Iron Purpose Podcast, Nick Schwen. Stay sharp, everybody. All right, everybody, we are rocking and rolling here. Welcome to the Iron Purpose Podcast. We are on our second episode now. We had our first one last week, and it was so fun, super cool to talk to Tim. This week, I do have a special treat, like I said. Nick Schwen. We met, man, how long ago? I don't even know.
It's been a while since it's been what?
I think at least 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, at least 5 to 6. Yeah.
Yeah, we met at a Bible study at a mutual friend had put on, and we were both kind of in and out of it. And then I saw you at the gym a few times at any time and got a chance to chat with you a little bit. And ever since then, I've been kind of following you on social media and what you've been up to, and it's been super cool. So when I decided to make this podcast and make this group, I was like, oh, I got to get this guy on here because you just know those people. You get to talking to them or you get to see them, and you're like, he's got something that I think I could learn from. He's got something that I want. So.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and like you said, iron sharpens iron. So it's great to have these conversations, and it's great to be able to be a part of it. And I appreciate you bringing me on.
Heck yeah, man. What is life currently like as Nick Schwen?
So right now, it's honestly been pretty hectic because if you would look around the room right now, there's just boxes everywhere because we're in the process of a move. So
okay.
Yeah, praise the Lord. We're actually getting our first home on Friday. We're closing. So
there you go.
Right now, we're living in Bismarck, Mandan, North Dakota, but it's like the Brainerd Baxter of North Dakota. So,
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And we had an apartment for like just about 2 years now, and then we're gonna get our first home, still in Mandan, but same kind of distance away from both our work.
Oh, heck yeah, that's nice. How does that feel? It's your first home.
It's exciting, but it's been a long time to get to this point. Obviously, just the crazy interest rates and everything. It's been like we've been chasing the carrot kind of a thing. But
right, bananas.
Yeah.
How was Go ahead.
I was gonna say, thank the Lord. Finally, we've been able to budget and save enough to be able to afford that. So, yeah.
Had you been looking for a while, or was it? Because I know a couple of my friends have been looking. It's either too expensive or it just gets snatched up so quickly. Did you get a chance to see it and think about it for a little bit before it was gone?
Yeah, we've been looking at the market, and that's where it was kind of like, wow, I don't know, something's got to give at some point, kind of a thing where it's like, okay, are the interest rates going to go down? Okay, are the prices going to go down? And then both of them just kept climbing. So it's like you're chasing that just like constant. Maybe we'll get one that we want, but then if we get one, then it's not one that we want, but it's one we can afford. And then if it's one we can afford, it's really not the one that we feel like we'd have to, want to start a family in that. And that's something that obviously is a goal of ours. And that's something that we both want. So it'd be tough just continually bouncing from home to home and then refinancing. So
right.
Never fun.
Yeah. Just getting it over with.
I hate the whole, paperwork process of it all. And I give all that to our realtor and that. So that's something
there you go.
Deal with myself.
Right. No, I don't blame you at all. Oh, that's awesome, man. So you're moving. When do you move?
Friday. So
Sheesh.
I'm in between my shift days. So Thursday I'm on shift and Saturday I'm on shift. So the day in between this swing, then we'll be moving all the boxes. Thankfully, we found a lot of friends in that out, whether it's in our church or just from around the fire station, to be able to help us move. A couple of them have some trucks that are enclosed that they're going to be able to draw those trailers and bring us
nice.
At least 2 loads, hopefully in one setting. Now we don't have to go back and do 2 multiple trips, but I feel like at least we could get it maybe in the first trip. We'll see.
Just pile it all in. It's like when you're a kid and you come home and your mom says, hey, can you help me unload the groceries? And you grab every single bag like you're not leaving one.
That is exactly. I mean, Haley notices that too. Whenever I go into a store and come back with all our groceries and stuff, I'm getting it all in one go. And she's like, "No,
Uh-huh.
take multiple trips." I'm like, "Nope, we're doing one trip.
Nope.
I'll
Step aside.
put these all in, straddle them up my shoulders, and we're going one trip." I hate. And we're on the third floor right now, so it's like I don't like going up the stairs multiple times. And I'm an active
Right.
guy, so that's like
All right.
I
Yeah,
just
it's nothing.
you know,
Load
I
them
have
up. Come
to
on.
talk about groceries. You got to get them in one go.
100%. Hop on my back too. We're climbing.
Yeah,
Let's go. Man, so yeah, you do have a busy life right now. You kind of touched on, kind of what you do for work a little bit there.
Mhm.
And I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't want to ask. I was gonna say, how the heck do you balance all of that? But if you don't mind, for those who don't know you, don't really know your story, and we haven't talked a whole lot for enough to really me know who you are as
Mhm.
a person other than the gym and a couple times of Bible study. But if you don't mind just sharing, it can be, as deep as you want or as surface
Mhm.
level as you want. Just kind of what you're all about, what you got going on, especially your career and then some other stuff you're doing right now.
Yeah. So, as you can kind of see, I have this symbol. It's kind of the part of the D, but this dumbbells and drumsticks is my brand. But it's kind of encompassing the brand that I have, but also the training, the coaching, all of it, music, whether it's even firefighting. I try to put a little bit of that on there. There's obviously limitations in that with department stuff, not able to obviously post everything. So that's something I don't post as much, but music and coaching and bodybuilding. I'm a professional 2-time pro bodybuilder naturally, so I have to. And everybody always asks a question, so I'm just gonna say it now. Is with the natural side of things, there's natural divisions now in bodybuilding, so they test you whether, especially if you're a pro, they test you if they feel like you might be taking something in the off season. And there's random reports. Sometimes somebody thinks that I might be juicing that, they'll request a test in that from whether it's the heads of the committees or somebody sends in an anonymous tip, and then you have to send in a negative test result for that you're not taking steroids or anything. It's more than just steroids. It's it's uh, it's enhancement, anything, growth hormone, or whether it's peptides. A lot. There's a huge list. So the WADA list of prohibited substances is what it goes by for most divisions, which is the Olympic standard.
Interesting. Is
Yeah.
there anything in that list that you wouldn't think would be in there? Like, I guess from myself who doesn't know much about it, is there something
Right.
in there where it's like you had to cut it out? Like, oh shoot, I can't have that. I got to cut that out.
Yeah, so I mean, there's sometimes stimulants. So, like, there's some very high stimulants. Typically, they're not going to be in your brands of protein or pre workouts, typically, because sometimes there are pre workouts, or whether it is, they say hormone support, sometimes it's natural herbs in that are in hormone support supplements. But a lot of times, too, it could be you want to make sure there's no growth hormone in it. So, every
Mm-hmm.
time, whether it's with I'm with the supplement, looking at it in that, I have to read every single label and I have to compare it to that list. Like, no matter what, like I'm always checking the label, because you always get guys that they'll be like, "Oh, it was dirty supplements and that," which that's usually not the case, but that's an excuse that people use if they get caught. So
Right.
when there's stuff that's found in your, say, pre-workout protein, that's a growth hormone, and that said pre-workout or that's only selling for like $15-20, they're making somehow a crazy profit that they can sell growth hormone and a pre-workout at a very low rate. So whatever they're
Jeez.
doing is magical, but no, that person is probably then taking some kind of substance.
Right. Sheesh. Well, let's go
Mhm.
back to like the beginning with since we're on the topic of bodybuilding.
Yeah.
How does one even get started in that, and how do you work your way up to a professional level? And is there like higher levels that you could go with this? And do you intend to do that? And I guess I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. Too many questions, but let's
No,
start. Let's.
no, that's
What
all
got
good.
you interested in it? Why'd you start?
Yeah, so I was very interested in it. Just I love the whole art form of bodybuilding. So being a musician in that with the whole drumming thing, um, when you're posing in that on stage and you're posing to the music and you're presenting a presentation of the work that you have done through, whether it's the gym or just all the adversity that you've had in life, you're
Mhm.
presenting all of that at one point on stage. So you're telling a story. So when I'm up there I like to play with the music a bit. So whether it's through the rhythm of my poses, I'm slowing down something, I'm hitting it more dynamically in that, it brings more energy to the stage, and it brings a fun atmosphere too, because it's a very, very high intensity, energetic sport when it can be, especially back in the golden era days of like Arnold, Frank Zane, and all of them. Like the crowd's going nuts. It's super loud. It's very intense. It's a very loud sport. Sometimes some atmospheres in the bodybuilding shows kind of like to keep it quiet, like a library, but it's starting to really get back to its roots, especially at
Mhm.
the bigger shows and a higher level. And that's something that I'm really starting to dive into. So I now have, when I said two-time pro, I have my pro card for the USBF and the OCB. So the OCB is the biggest professional natural bodybuilding organization currently.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and they're worldwide, and the USBF as well. They're starting to branch into that worldwide side of things. OCB only accepts pros in their own division, so to compete in the OCB, I have to be an OCB pro. And there's a few shows that I have my eye on in the future and looking ahead at advancing into that.
Mhm.
Sorry if you hear some yapping in the back. My dog's he's complaining because he doesn't get any playtime right now. But that's, you hear those little yips. That's what's going on.
You don't have anybody like locked up in your closet
No,
or
I
something?
promise. Yeah.
I totally get
Um,
it. I've got two dogs myself, so yeah,
yeah,
no
yeah,
worries.
they're both high strung, very high energy. We'll get into that in a bit.
It sounds good.
um,
That's awesome.
yeah, so the OCB they have what's called the Yorton Cup. It's one of the biggest shows at the championship level of natural bodybuilding. It has great exposure, but it also gets that when it brings that professional atmosphere on stage with pretty much the high production quality, as well as just the way that they make it presented to the athletes is very important, because you're going through a whole prep of 24 to sometimes 30 weeks for a prep, and you have this one moment on stage in that. And if the production quality can be lower, then sometimes it feels like you're not really getting the most out of that one moment that you have is so quick.
Mhm.
But it's great to compete, and at a competitive level in that, those higher, bigger shows are usually what are most sought after to go compete at. So when I got my USBF Pro card, I went to it as actually the Natural Revolution committee first, and then they branched with the USBF. So now they're growing, because now it's the USBF Plus and the USBF. So all those Natural Revolution shows combined with the USBF to be the USBF Plus. And so what it is, I mean, it's growing, and they're very much they once a pro, always a pro. So like if you get your pro card, you don't have to renew it. Every 2 years. Some divisions have where you have to renew it, but also they accept other pros from other divisions to compete at their show, because it's something too. It's natural bodybuilding is such a well bodybuilding is such a niche, but natural bodybuilding is an even bigger niche, where it's we want that sport to grow, and we want that community to grow, and seeing that other pros can come in and compete at those high levels makes it fun for not only the pros, but also just everybody that's the judges, everybody that's there, the audience, everything, because then it's fun to compete with top level athletes on stage.
Mhm.
So I did the when I got my pro card, I did the U.S. Championships, which that's the USBF top show that they have,
And
and that was a
what does
blast.
USPF stand for? Did you? I don't know if you said it.
United States Bodybuilding Federation.
Okay, got it. Okay,
Yep. So that one was it moves, it travels, and that it actually was in Burnsville. It was in Burnsville or Bloomington. I think it was in Bloomington, and
sure.
they had just, I mean, top level athletes I got to compete with for my first pro show. So when you get your pro card, you're not technically a pro until you do your first pro show, which is called your pro debut. And I was going to
Regardless of how you rank or however that
Yep.
works.
Yep.
Okay.
So you have to in any division. So whether it's OCB or whether it's USBF, all divisions kind of work that way, which I think is pretty cool, because then if you're a pro, then you should be competing at that pro level too. So
Right.
it makes sense to that. And so, but some guys don't go into their pro debut until years later, until they think that they're ready in that, which is it's totally understandable, because if you're not feeling like you want to go into that pro side of things yet, then keep staying at that amateur state, before you go into that really competitive level. Because once you're pro, then you can't compete as amateur.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there was the U.S. Championships had guys that have won Mr. America, guys that have won the Mr. Universe, Natural Universe Worlds, which is the IPE pro side of things, another natural community. Guys that have won that, they've won the Natural Olympia. So that
Wow.
it was a stacked lineup, and there were over 15 to 20 different competitors, and I was able to get top 10, which is super exciting. And
Dang.
they say that I'm young in this sport, and I learned that the longer I've been in this, because when you do it naturally, it takes longer of a time for your body to get to that mature muscle state. What they say is that bigger but also more defined. The older you get, the more ripped. It's easier to stay more ripped at a professional level. It's crazy. Like
Interesting.
guys are in their 50s to 70s and they're just looking shredded. Like it's easy for them to get shredded too because the skin thins out more, and the more you compete, the more the muscle just it gets easier to get to that peak state, and
Hmm.
it looks way better, more defined, and more full, but also a lot leaner the older you get. So like 40s to 50s, that's the like prime time natural bodybuilder pro state. Like the guy who just won the Yorton Cup, I think he was 45 or 47, something up to that. But I mean, he's won it 3 times now, I think, and it's definitely one that's really sought after in the OCB division.
Dang. So how
Yeah,
long until you're to that point? Because you're
um,
close to my age, aren't you? You're
yes, I'm
20.
28 currently,
Okay,
and
same. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm trying to get up to that as quick as I can, and I'm trying to really dive into it as soon as I can. And I haven't announced what shows that I'm going to be doing yet, but my next competition season is in 2026.
Okay.
But I will say that I will be stepping onto a bigger stage after a few shows. You usually do some warm up shows, and those warm up shows usually you start to look a little bit better each show that you compete. So then you kind of set your season, and you're going to come in. You want to look good every show. That's always the goal, but you look better and better. So you want to kind of set that bigger show as that like last one to do. So
Hmm.
the next season, I'm gonna kind of step out into a little bit of a bigger competitive show again. I might do 3 to 4 in 2026.
Okay.
I'll keep
Dang.
those unwrap on that side of things, just because I haven't announced it yet, and I like to kind of keep it a little bit more, not so much secretive, but a little bit more like not hidden. But I like to be a little bit more of like a surprise, like presents on Christmas kind of thing. I like to keep it on under wraps and then until the big reveal, and then it's better and better every time, and it's not always seeing what I'm doing. So
Absolutely. No, this I just got like the visual of like a shark under the water until like
yeah,
you're ready to pounce, and then boom. Yep, here I am.
that's sometimes too. It's like you never know, and shows too. That's the fun part about it. You never know who's going to be there. Like
Uh-huh.
U.S.
Oh,
Championship,
dang.
like there
Okay.
were like, I mean, 10. I could count them like champion pros that have won these top world shows and that. And it's when you look at these lineups and that in a big stage, it's fun, but it's a crazy atmosphere too, to where it's exciting when you get a really good like all star lineup together and you're butting
Hmm.
heads and elbows on stage. It's a blast.
That's
That's
awesome.
back to the question side of things. That's I really love the competitive atmosphere of it. And like I told you earlier, I mean, I get onto tangents and then it keeps going.
It's
But
all good, man.
I've been in multiple sports my whole life, and bodybuilding I saw, especially as I told myself when I was going to be a post player at Bethel, I wanted to get bigger to be a post player at Bethel, and then I thought, okay,
For
well,
basketball.
yes, for basketball. And
Hmm.
I was thinking if I get so big to where like I'm after basketball and that like I'm just my goal is to get as big as I can and as strong as I can, and then if I just get so big to where I'm like what am I going to do now? I'm going to just go into bodybuilding. And because I loved that aspect of it, but I just never had the time to dive into it until after I left college.
Okay.
So yeah,
I saw. I think you either posted it today or yesterday. Where you were a little bit smaller in
yeah,
build. It was
yeah.
that in high school, or what time was that? At what point was that in your life? If you
Is
know,
that the,
picture.
the cross country one?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So that was actually my freshman year of high school, which was the only year in high school that I did cross country.
Hmm.
I actually, after that, I did football. And then after that, I just pretty much left to pretty much train that fall season and get bigger and better for basketball. Because in Brainerd, we made it to state that season as when I was a junior. And then I wanted to go back to state because of that experience. And that kind of really was where a lot of my training started, was that seeing is what the team was, especially getting to state, the atmosphere of it, just being able to compete at that high level. And then seeing is what it took to get there. I wanted to go back. So a few of us just really started to train hard and work hard, whether it's in the gym or just, shooting, getting up shots in the wee hours of the night and that. But a lot of it was just trying to get back to that atmosphere. So when I was in cross country, I did that. Well, mainly my brothers. So here's the background of it. My brothers did cross country when I was younger, and
Mm-hmm.
I would go to all their meets and I would watch them. And I wanted to do cross country because I saw that, how fun that they were enjoying it was. And I'm not gonna lie, like I was good at cross country, but I did not like it. So, like, the part that I liked was the friends and the competitive aspect of it.
Yeah, the
So,
camaraderie.
yep, the camaraderie. And then after all the races and that, like I do, I did track. I'll go into that, but the cross country side of things, like I get done with every race, and there's that like runner's high, but at the same time, there's that like, man, why am I doing this to myself kind of a thing, and you just keep doing it over and over, and that's kind of why too I went into bodybuilding, because like the less cardio you do when you're trying to grow, like the bigger and the better and more full your muscle gets. But as soon as you touch cardio, me specifically, like when I do cardio, as you see in that photo, like I shred, and I'm an ectomorph. I shred and shrink super quick, which is great when you're trying to cut for a show. So I don't need to, thankfully, I don't need to do as much cardio, and I really don't need to do aggressive extremes of diet because my body just leans super well as soon as I start really dedicating food and cardio again. But yeah, the cross country side of things, that was my freshman year of high school in 2010. Man, that's crazy. So 14 years ago, yeah, it was definitely, I was the more skinnier, lankier self, and I was always lean, and I had that, lean tissue, but it wasn't the same. It was a very long endurance twitch muscle than it was, more of a fast twitch and more full um, kind of size that I have now. And that a lot of that is food and stuff. And we can get into that here in another question as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
So when you started, that post that you made was kind of like, if I remember correctly, it was, people didn't think you'd be able to be a
Yeah.
bodybuilder because of your size. You're small, whatever.
Yeah.
Do you still have those kind of not necessarily haters,
Mhm.
or how does that work in your own mind? How do you shut that up, or do
Oh
you have
yeah.
those doubts of, well, maybe I shouldn't be doing this? There's all these other pros here. What am I doing? How do you combat stuff like that?
So I personally don't have them. It's the voices and the crossings of paths of people through my life, whether it's back in the day or even now. Like it's crazy to think about. Like the more that you do and the more you succeed, especially because this is life. Life in general. Like if somebody sees you start to do well in your life, normally you have those individuals that will put into your life and your growth in your life, which is awesome. And that is super important because it's not only important, it's biblical. Iron sharpening iron. That's the bare roots of like as we grow each other as brothers and sisters in Christ, but also
Mm-hmm.
like that's also just how we do really well as society. Because when you start putting someone down in that, then they start second guessing things. So you can't really second guess things, especially in the sport of bodybuilding, when you second guess things or you let those voices affect your cortisol levels spike, your stress hormone. So when that spikes, you actually retain more fat and water retention in your body. So your body, because it's stressed, will start to look and change because of those stress levels. So when we're less stressed, we actually also even look better and feel better mentally and physically too. Uh,
Hmm.
and that's something that's so minimal and minute, but it makes a huge difference in a long prep. But in a short term thing where you have people in crossing that have said these things your whole life, and you're kind of used to it. And that's me personally. I've had this my whole life where it's when I was in cross country, it was okay. Why are you doing cross country? That's a horrible sport. That's a stupid sport. So you have those moments, and then it's okay. Now I'm done doing cross country and I'm starting bodybuilder. Well, you're never going to be big enough for, to be a bodybuilder. And then it's like, okay, now you're a bodybuilder. Okay, well now your legs aren't big enough, kind of. And it's just those things of passing, but it's something that they have inside of them that is a little bit more of their kind of inconsistency in their life, that they want to start pointing fingers at yours because they feel a little bit different about themselves. So they have to find something in you. And
Right.
like I said, that's not really a way that we grow as individuals, but just not as a society either. So I'm used to it. I love them because for me, that is why I'm continually getting better, because I think of those moments and I don't down on them. I don't let them affect me. But what it does, it gives me that drive. So it's funny because when someone gives me that, that hate or that like comment that's like, oh, you have small calves kind of a thing. And then it's like I'm in the gym and then I'm just like on a reel in my mind. I'm like, okay, I'm not proving something to you, but I know that this is making you upset. So I'm gonna keep doing better at it because it's a weird kind of like, I know this is making you annoyed because I'm succeeding, so I'm just gonna keep trying to succeed. Is really really
Right.
and I know that I'm not like, by no means I'm not like the top pro in natural bodybuilding, because I'm, like I said, I'm so young in it, and it's such a subjective sport already. So like not only are you getting criticism from the people that, whether they don't understand the sport or whether they just don't like you because they see you succeeding in the sport, the judging is subjective too. So one judge might like the way that you're posing one show, and then they might not like what you're doing the next show because they're different judges. They're different divisions. Different divisions have different judges. As a person and as an individual, you also have certain preferences. So judges might like certain details that other judges might not. And
Interesting.
then transitions and poses. Some might like more of a longer pose and a hold more. Some might like more dynamic posing where you're giving a little bit more of a story. Or just some of them like you to just hit your pose and do nothing else extra. So it's a very subjective sport too, along with the having multiple different judges and multiple different divisions. So it's
Interesting.
always, you're always getting judgment from no matter where you're going. So it's kind of something you just get used to over time, and um, I enjoy it. I
Absolutely.
really
Use
do.
it as fire almost. If
Yeah,
somebody says that, and you go, here's a number, get in line, buddy.
that's yeah. So it's the whole forged in fire thing. I mean,
Heck yeah.
you're constantly under fire from somebody's opinion, and you're just constantly getting different arrows from somebody coming from a different way, and that's how you get stronger. So if you let it, if you don't let it strengthen you, and you just let it affect you, and you keep getting pulled down in that, that's no good. And obviously, sometimes that happens. Somebody might feel and take something differently than somebody thought they would, and then that continually adds up over time. That just cumulative stress of someone's words, and that they start to believe themselves. So you can't listen to those outward voices, because I mean it doesn't help you, and those burdens, if you carry them, are super heavy, because they're usually not true, or they're usually lies. Um,
Right.
and even with the natural bodybuilding side of things, I still get constant, people saying like, "Oh, there's no way that he's natural. He's totally juicing." Like that was, another post I had at one point, because it's comments like that you just have to take not only with a grain of salt, but you have to take as a compliment, because to where they're thinking this is the only approach to do, and you're able to do it naturally. It's showing that I'm at least going down the right path of this naturally, to where they think that there's no way that you could get to that unless you take this substance to do it, which is
Right.
completely, beside the point. I think that you can do it naturally, and you can do it naturally well, and look great, even if it's not just genetics, because that does play a role in bodybuilding. But you can, as I showed you, in that photo, like I was super lean and lanky, but like that was my genetics, lean and lanky and hard to get size. Like it took a long time and a lot of food and a lot of training to get to the size I'm at now,
I
compared
believe it.
compared to that photo that you saw in the cross country one.
And it's awesome that you brought up that perspective within the bodybuilding realm. I was blowing my leaves today, and I started just thinking about different things. And one of my buddies that I talked about earlier before we started recording, he's just kind of going through some difficult stuff right now, and it reminded me of the phrase, when life gives you when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. And I just kind of started just getting deeper and deeper into it. And it's like, well, we can't decide when life's going to throw us lemons.
Right.
And I think we've got a couple options with those. You can eat them and be sour and be bitter about your situation, or you can take them and throw them back and just wait until they come again, because you can put it off, but they're still going to come.
Yep.
Or you can take it, squeeze it. It's probably
Hmm.
it's going to cost some effort to get them into that juice, or you're maybe going to have to use some of your money or whatever to go buy some sugar to mix the lemonade.
I like that.
But then you can drink it. Like it is what you make it.
That's good.
And
Yeah.
that's something that I say a lot too, I work as a correctional officer in a jail here. And
I did see that. Yeah.
yeah, and a lot of new
Your
people when
service as
they,
well.
what's that?
Thank you for your service as well, because
Uh,
I had some buddies that worked in the jail now, and it's a task.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, and I appreciate that. And a lot of people, some newer guys or newer ladies, they come in and, you get the ones, every job has it. And I'm sure even you have some coworkers who are just like, it's like, why are you even working here if you hate it so much? You just have such a negative mentality. That's just got to
Yep.
be a very crappy way to live.
Yep.
And I tell people, it is what you make it. Like if you want it to be sour, if you want that lemon to be sour, it's going to be sour. But you and only you have the ability to turn it into something great. And then with lemonade, if you got a really good glass, you want to share it with other people.
Yeah.
So you're going to be making it for other people, and people are going to be drinking from your lemonade and going, "Wow, this is awesome!" And like you touched on before, that iron sharpens iron. We're going to sharpen each other, and we're all going to be drinking all the sugar
Yep.
lemonade, even though we try to stay away from the sugar, like we talked about earlier.
Right. But
Like,
hey, I mean, you got options like we were talking about the ghost energy drinks for that.
yes, yep. Shout out Ghost.
The ghost, yeah. Not looking for sponsorship, but it'd be nice.
That'd be sick. Yes, for both of us. Let's
Right.
work on a deal to get them both.
Exactly. Let's get them on board.
Heck yeah, man, that's awesome. It's cool how you can still have that story of lemons and
Mhm.
apply it to a correctional facility setting or a bodybuilding setting, and just we hold the keys to how it's going to affect us, is we can't, what's the quote, you can't we don't get to decide what happens to us in life, but we can choose what we do with what happens to us.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people understand that. They just think life is, the hand of, it's dealt to them, and
Yeah.
they're like, oh shoot, all right, well I guess I lose. It's
Yeah.
like,
Especially nowadays. I mean, it's the I want it now. I want it quick. I want it easy. I want the less stress on my personal, my mental, my physical, all of it. I just want it now, and I don't want to have to do anything to get it. And
mm-hmm.
it's a lost art. A lot of people are kind of losing that drive to go through the ruts and the fire that you have to go through, to get to whatever it is on the other side. And that's, whether it's success or whatever it is with your family, like even just going through it, marriage, for instance, like that's something you're seeing a lot of, divorce rates. And that I'm currently married, as you're currently married too. And
Mm-hmm.
that's, something that a lot of engagements are they're seeing not as much value, because they're like, oh, well, if I go into that, and then I'm going to get, it's going to get hard, and then all of a sudden I might get divorced, so I don't want to go into that. So that's, even just in the marriage side of things, it's like some people don't want to go through that struggle, what they see as struggle, to get to that, brighter side, whatever. It's never going to be easy, but it's 100% worth it, whatever you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's especially with like training, as you're talking about, and the lemonade. I love that analogy, because that's exactly it. Like, we're going to enjoy this lemonade, but like it takes the grind out of the lemon and all of that work to put into it and making it and creating it. And it's going to take some effort, adding some stuff to it, in your own time, whether that's, the sugar being the money and time that you're putting into it. You definitely see the fruits of that, but it takes the time and the effort to do it. It's not easy, as with that photo that I had in that the 14-year difference. I mean, even just, it's crazy to see. I have transformations of 7-year differences. I haven't released a ton of them yet. That's kind of in the off season. I like to do stuff like that, because it's more
Mm-hmm.
more things of motivation for others, especially. But it's a good perspective for me too, seeing is where I was at then. That actually came up. That photo was a few of them were Facebook photos, and then the rest of them I also just got from my parents from the years. And that I was like, whoa, because you see yourself every day. Like you see
Mm-hmm.
yourself every day. So like you don't see from point A and B. You see yourself as like, this is me. I see myself in the mirror. Sometimes I still feel like I'm that kind of small. I got that's muscle dysmorphia at the same time. So that's
Isn't that
a
crazy?
something
Yeah.
that exactly, and that's bodybuilding, that is huge. Muscle dysmorphia, especially on the unnatural side, but even in the natural side, because like like I said, you see yourself in a mirror, whether it's the gym, you wake up, there's a mirror every day. And so obviously I'm at the point, I'm a healthy relationship with it where I know that I look, bigger in that obviously than what I used to, but like there's shows based on this, like bigorexia is different. Like that's more of like, I want to get as big as I can. And that's an addiction. But then there's muscle dysmorphia. You don't see yourself growing and you see yourself where you started. And
Mm.
so even people with fat loss have this same problem is seeing that growth of their fat loss because they just look in the mirror all the time. They look at the scale all the time. So you have to look at measurements, body fat compositions, all of it, just to see it. So it's a
Mhm.
struggle. It's a struggle.
Absolutely, and it's crazy, and I'm sure you've been there before too. One of the things I struggle with is being consistent in the gym. It's something I'm working on right now. I have a personal trainer that I work with at least once a week to keep me in there. But we had a session today. We kind of hashed out a plan for me to stay more consistent. But it's one of those things where I could go like a couple days without working out, and my mentality just starts to go down the toilet, and I'll look at myself in the mirror and go, "Ugh, like man, what's going on?" And then I'll go work out like a hardcore session where I'm almost puking at the end of it, or
Yep.
maybe I do throw up.
Yep.
And then I go home and take a shower, and I'm like looking in the mirror, like, oh man, yeah. And it's nothing's changed from
Yeah.
the morning before to now. It's just that it's that all
Yep.
in the mind. It's crazy.
Yep. And you got the pump. You got that blood flow to the muscle.
True,
So it's looking more full and more lean and
true.
cut. And then when that muscle relaxes, the skin is it's further away from the skin, so that definition's not there what it was. The same way in competition, out of competition. You see
Hmm.
that gym look and it's like, wow, this potential is great. And then you go back and you don't have a pump and it's like, I am small. But that's not the case. But but it is when you see that pump, and that's a part of it too, is that muscle dysmorphia. That's where that comes from too, because you see yourself at the best you look with. Hopefully the gym has good lighting. Not all gyms do, because sometimes you have those funhouse mirrors where again it makes you look like super overweight or like super lanky and tall. Where it's like you get the gym with the perfect lighting and the perfect mirrors. It's like wow, this is awesome. You go back to your bathroom mirror after your pump's done. You're like, oh boy, we got to do some work.
Right. Uh, Another thing I liked when you pointed out way back, when you were saying you started basketball and your goal was like state championship. You want to be there with your buddies and whatnot, and you really want to be as big as you could, so you could be the best you could be. You know,
Mhm.
when your best was required. And you also said, and if I do get to that point, when I'm done with basketball, I'm going to transition into bodybuilding.
Mhm.
And that also painted kind of a picture in my mind of something I've talked about before of like this up and down, just like mountains of life. Like you have that goal of yours was, basketball, state championship.
Mhm.
You get there and you get to the top of it and you guys win and or whatever it is, and that's your senior year. Some guys can continue on. They're good enough to continue on playing college and then go professional. But, for a lot of us, myself definitely included,
Mhm.
we got to that senior year of basketball, had so much fun, and then we graduated. And I haven't played another professional or another organized game of basketball, excuse me, since that point.
Right.
And when I grew up, I always wanted to be a police officer,
Mhm.
and it was a goal of mine. And my dad was a cop, my grandpa was a cop, so it's like I really want this so bad, and I put like as much effort and passion into it that I could until I finally got the opportunity. And long story short, it didn't work out and didn't go the way that I thought it would.
Mhm.
Ended up being more than I could handle or that I thought I could handle, and I gave up the position that I had to go part time, and I tried to figure out okay, what do I want to do with my life, and dabble in a couple other things like trying to sell insurance or whatever, and I got pulled back to it again. And I was like, if it's been a year, I'm gonna give it another shot, see what happens, and
Yeah.
ended up getting into a car accident while on training with in the squad car. Thank God nobody was hurt, but
Oh,
that ended my opportunity there. And I had thought that all my problems would have been solved when I became a police officer. I was like, this is my ultimate goal. This is what I want. And I got there and it was like, well, now what? Like nothing's really changed. I just have a badge on now. I just,
yeah.
everything is still the same. How
Yeah.
come I don't feel any different?
Yeah.
And the analogy that I'm getting out of you saying, my goal is basketball, but once I get there, now I'm transitioning into bodybuilding. I'm going to continue my purpose. Like that one sport or that one thing doesn't make you. It's
Right.
it's you that makes you. And I'm going to use what I have, the gifts that God gave me and the gifts that I work for.
Mhm.
And for me, I think it's personal relations. I really enjoy people. I love talking with people. It's one of the big reasons why I do this. But I always thought that it was police officer. This is what you got to do. This is your purpose. When in all reality, it's your purpose is within here. You just got to be, looking for the way for it to be used, and it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be law enforcement. You're going to be working in a jail, and if you would have told me that when I started, I would say, no, I don't want any part of it. And now I'm in there, and I'm absolutely loving it because I'm able to feel that purpose and that passion with it.
Isn't that
So
cool?
it's so crazy. It's awesome.
You have this one goal in your mind, and like you said, and then it develops into something totally different that you didn't expect, and that's our plan versus God's plan, where it's like I have this idea in my mind, I want to do this and I want to do that, and it's the verse. I can't remember what the verse was. It says you'll make the plans in your head, but it's God that has set out His path and His plan for you, and so that's we can make all these plans we want and that, but like He's still going to keep us towards what His purpose is for us, and I think that's motivating, especially for myself, because it's like I know that I'm human. I know that like I make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes and that, but like the Lord, He is God. He is going to guide us to what it is that His purpose is for us in life, and that's something that's so cool because it's like you had that drive that He gave you since you were young, and that developed and pushed you into that like into the correctional officer side of things, where it's still you're in the whole officer side of things, but now it's in the correctional officer setting of the jail and that. So it's cool because like He gave you that vision, but like you didn't at first. You kind of had it in your mind like this is what I'm going to do with it, and then He's like, well, I got something better, and then like that's going to help you right now to where you're at in your life. So I the same way because like I through my life I was like I'm gonna go and I'm gonna get like as a kid I'm gonna do basketball and I'm gonna be the best I can in basketball. As a kid, obviously, all of us probably had that moment where it's like I want to be in the NBA. I want to be
Sure.
a professional basketball player. So I wanted to go to that pro level. And then God's like, okay, yeah, but that vision that you had for basketball, not going to be basketball. It's actually going to be bodybuilding. But you're still going to enjoy it. But it's definitely that drive that was from a child in that where it developed where it's like, oh, I really like bodybuilding. I like doing that side of things. And then I didn't see, continuing where I was at in college because it just got so expensive. Like the
Mm-hmm.
loans are stacking up, everything. I'm like, I can't just keep taking on these loans. I have to figure it out. And I went and pursued coaching and personal training. So getting out early, and then with that, diving into bodybuilding side of things. But that was trusting the Lord's plan because it's like, okay, you don't want me to keep pursuing the basketball thing, so I'm gonna take your step and go this way.
Mm-hmm. And even though that one thing, you may have thought it was the thing for you, maybe it was like, no, this is my dream job, or maybe you had that dream girl. And I apologize if I already mentioned this in the last podcast. I think I was talking to Tim about this, but it's like you have that person, the one. You're like, oh, this is the one for me, and it doesn't work out, and you're like, man, I thought it was. It's like, well,
Completely.
that person was they were the one for you during that time in your life, like they
Yep.
were that mountain. And that's why I really like the visual of like a mountain range rather than just one mountain, because you get to the top of that mountain and you're able to see other ones out there and go, okay, now I got to go down and get that one and the next one, and just keep
Yep.
moving, keep climbing to the top in
Yep.
other ways in my life.
Yeah, I mean it's cool. Life's it's never linear. We try to simplify it the best we can, and that's just the human nature. It's like we want to simplify things to how we perceive it, and then it's never that way. I mean, it's never going to be just a straight line, whether it is what workplace you're at, and I mean even with firefighting side of things, like when I went into firefighting, I first was led to just get my fire one and two and my hazmat awareness level at Rosemount, Minnesota, and that was my
Mm-hmm.
first dive into the fire service. And then I took a trip over to Bismarck because they had what was the Fire Combat Challenge, and that was super cool to me because it's a competitive sport of like firefighter games essentially. Like it's kind of like an obstacle course, but it's like time. So there's a ton of stuff you do. I mean, you run up this huge tower and you pull up a huge hose load, and then you throw it over, then you run back down, all while geared up, and you're timed.
Mm-hmm.
You're going against somebody neck and neck because it's like they're lined up right next to each other, and the obstacle course runs right next to each other, and it's like a one-on-one or a 2v2 kind of thing. So with the track background and then also just like the competitor aspect background, and I was like, this is cool. It's a sport for firefighting. Yeah, let's go try it out. It definitely, they call it the most intense 2 minutes in sports, and it really, because like, and and this is again me wanting to do multiple things. When I left and I did football in high school, I did football for a little bit at Bethel as well. But I left to pursue personal training in that with just the year or two that I had there, and I left to
Mhm.
pursue that. But that competitive aspect, they're like 2 minutes intense sports. I've done some intense sports, but also like I've ran super endurance races way back in the day. No big deal. And then it's intense. Like you get by the end of it, and I think it was like one of the hottest heat advisory days that week, and they happened to be doing it that weekend. Like I'm gonna die by the end of it. It was great. It was phenomenal, and I did really well. But like the heat and all the gear, so one of the biggest threats of firefighter health and safety is heat exhaustion and heat stroke. So when
Mhm.
you're in a hot environment, not even just that, but all of the workload you're doing, even just of light amounts, but a long exposure of time, you're going to sweat a ton in that suit because it's just containing everything in there. And it's keeping away, it's resisting the heat, but you're still taking in heat. Like, big misconception with the fire and the fire gear that we're wearing is that it completely blocks out any bit of the heat, but it absorbs quite a bit. Like if you don't turn like a rotisserie chicken when you have like the heat of the fire, you're gonna accumulate so much heat on this right shoulder that it's just gonna start burning. So you have to like move and then just reposition yourself over time, so you're spreading that heat absorption. But that heat stroke of the side of the things of just working in that gear for the 2 minutes, that was an intense sport. So now it's at like a professional level where they actually made like a league of it where they're doing it on, I think it aired on like ESPN2 or something like that, but it was in Bismarck.
That's awesome.
Bismarck hired for it, and I was like, oh, you guys got to bring it back. And I think in the future they'd like to, but they haven't really brought it back. But I got done, and one of the he was going to be a captain. He's now a captain. He invited me actually to. He's like, hey, we're recruiting and we're looking for individuals that like the work and stuff. So I apparently showed my stuff where he's like, hey, I want to have you on the department if you can. And so I was like, huh, career firefighter, like full time fire. That was always in my mind to be like a career firefighter because I
Mhm.
was in the volunteer side of it, paid on call. I had like, I'd say like juggling 4 different jobs, whether it's coaching, training, just part time stuff, all the above, and then trying to just make ends meet of our apartment in Rosemount. Where I'm like, I've always wanted to do fire career because then now not only am I doing what I love, but it's also helping me sustain my family and my future and my family.
Mhm.
So that to me was like, wow, Lord, if you're opening that door, I'm all in. And then after that, it just continually progressed. I did the application process, the panel interview, all of it. Just the Lord kept pushing me along, and then all of a sudden now, okay, we moved out here, and my wife Haley, she found a job at a Shiloh Christian school, which was awesome because teaching in that Minnesota for her was tough at times, and finding a Christian school was super important for her in her new endeavor of teaching, and that just happened to pop up because we moved here hoping that she'd find something, and she's like, if I don't do teaching, I'll find something. And then the Lord's like, nope, you're going to work at a Christian school like you were hoping to do, but I just wanted my timing to have you
Mhm.
trust that step that we took. And it can be terrifying at times, but if you truly follow what the Lord wants for you, like Jonah and Nineveh, he's going to tell you, like, if you're going the wrong way, he's going to show you. Like, the storm's going to happen, and it's time to jump out of the boat.
Mhm.
You knew probably like miles back, probably should have jumped out of the boat, but it's time to jump out of the boat and go to what he wants you to do.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So you're still doing full time firefighting then right now too, huh?
I am, yes, in Bismarck, North Dakota. Yep.
Wow. Well, thank you for your service for that. I know a lot of firefighters in the area here, and um, I worked a lot alongside a lot of them too. And I get to you see some pretty messed up stuff when it comes to different car accidents or people really at their darkest points, and
Yeah.
nobody should ever have to do that.
No,
But somebody does, and I definitely appreciate you more than I think people give recognition for. So
I appreciate that.
yeah, that's awesome, man. And so how does one juggle being a professional bodybuilder, having a full-time job as a firefighter, and also a you're a personal fitness coach. Is that what you are as well?
Yep. So I'm a coach, whether it's just overall health and wellness, but I'm also a prep coach for bodybuilding. And I have a few athletes I prepped for shows in that. I'm excited to give their updates, a few of them once they give me their show photos and that. So you'll see some more of those kind of pop out in that. But
Heck yeah.
it's fun because as a coach, I've coached even so I love coaching. I love coaching the sports that I've grown up having a passion for. But I coached basketball as a head varsity coach, and when my wife and I lived in the Dominican for a year,
Oh
she lived
wow.
there for two. But the 1 year I was there, I was a basketball coach, and then I came back and I was the varsity and the sorry JV head coach and a varsity assistant at New Life Academy, and that was continually doing some of the basketball stuff. But I've always enjoyed helping others get to whatever goal it is that they're trying to achieve for coaching, sports, athletics. But prep for bodybuilding is that new passion that I've really enjoyed, and seeing somebody be the best they can. And to try to strive for that, but also kind of lead them along to have them get to that like next level and that next edge of growth that they can is fun for me because I have that passion for myself, but I love it when others succeed. So
Absolutely.
when I'm pushing them along to be the best they can, and I see how they enjoy it and how they, come out on the other side, like, wow, I feel great about myself and I look the best I've ever looked and I feel amazing. That for me is even better than like achieving that for myself.
Hmm.
So coaching and that juggling all of that is fun because it's always different. I think what I'm doing and why I like it so much, it's always something new, and that's firefighting. Like it's you never know what you're going to get on a call. You have an idea whether it's medical or fire or traffic accident that you always kind of know and you visualize it, but it's usually never going to be exactly how you visualized it.
Right.
So I always like changing things up.
Right. For sure. So then when you're trying to like when you're in season, like competition season, how do you manage working full time and then getting into the gym to do your workouts? Or maybe you're on a call and all of a sudden you're really hungry and maybe your blood sugar's dipping or something. Like, man, I need food, but I
Yeah.
can't because I'm trying to, I need to only because I remember one time when we were in Bible study back at Day's house, I
Hmm.
think you were in the middle of competition season and you could only eat like a handful of almonds or something, and it was just like, what?
Yep.
What?
Yep. So, and that was way back. I mean, I was a different. That was, I think, when I did my first show, I think that would have been. I was doing physique, I think, at that point, which is totally different. And when I did physique, they're like, "You're so big for physique. You should probably go into classic physique and bodybuilding." And I really liked that aspect. I just did it to get my feet wet because I coached myself for my first show.
Sure.
But the finding the time side of things or hitting meals when it's least convenient, it's never going to be when you want it to be. So you kind of have to set up a system to where you can plan it to be at those times. So it's like um, with fire side of things, I take along like this cooler bag. And all the guys at the station, wherever I go, even friends and that, they know that I have this cooler pack with me, and it's got my like essentially my whole day meals because especially if I'm on shift at the fire station, I could get out on a fire for 2 hours or 3 hours. I know that it could go however long it's going to take to put that up. Hopefully it's not a big fire in that, but if it is, when it's rehabilitation time where you go into your rehab tent, whatever it is, and you're having your snacks and that, I at least have my cooler where it's like, I'm gonna eat this bigger, quick food super fast because they give fruit snacks, they give like all these almonds, granola, and that, and the rehab tents and that, which I'll have at a fire at that point because all that stuff you're utilizing, like all of it's burned up super fast, and then usually I have
Mhm.
my meal after. But say what with like bodybuilding prep, fitting in the workout, I have to. I used to do it where we have a dedicated time where we get time on shift to actually work out, which I'm super thankful for because sometimes I'll do a little bit of extra stuff in there, just self growth kind of things during that time. But you can't guarantee that that time's not going to get interrupted. So if I'm in prep for a show, and actually what I do now, and I never thought I would really enjoy this, but I wake up at like 3:30 or 3:20, and I get my first meal in, and maybe by like 4 latest, and then usually 3:45, and then I work out an hour later. So then it's before shift because when trade of shifts happens, it's at 7 a.m. So typically you try to get there by like 6:45 so you can have a good transition. Just in case a call comes in during that 6:45 to 7 time, usually the next oncoming shift they'll take it. So you try to have everything ready to go by that time. So I try to get to the station by 6:40, 6:45, and then you're ready to go by the next shift. So they're not waiting for you, and you're not obviously getting in trouble for that. But
Right.
I try to have the workout done because then it's uninterrupted. I can do all that I need to do during that time, especially for a show. But even now in the growth season, like I really like that time where I can just dedicate to working out and not feel like, is that bell gonna go off and am I gonna have to go to a call and drop everything? And then
Hmm.
now trying to get back into that, like I love working, but getting back, if I go off and I do something and then coming back to that same mentality, it's tough because I've had that nighttime workouts. I feel so much more drained from the workday, and then it's like, okay, I'll work out at 5, which is kind of our like free time that you get. You get training through the day, lunch, all that workout time in the morning, and then 5 hits. Then it's like that's kind of your you time. You go whatever it is if you need to study, do stuff, or whether you're still doing work in that for driver's academy or whatever it is. Um, I'm actually going through now this coming season, which is exciting.
Hmm.
But they have that time at 5 where it's like, okay, if I didn't get my workout in the morning because we got calls, now at 5 I'm gonna want to go work out. But usually I don't want to go work out at that. So I get it super early when I know I'm gonna do it, get it done with, and then I did the hardest thing I did that day that I know it's gonna to help me through the rest of the day. I can just tackle it.
Hmm. Are you going to bed at like 6 then, or what?
I
How
wish.
do you?
No,
That's
I actually used to get
what these are for, right?
yes, yeah, right. So they say some of the things besides water that firefighters run off, coffee and caffeine. But I wish that was the sole thing that's going to help carry me on in that, and I wouldn't just get caffeine addictions and headaches. But I try to keep it to 2 energy drink minimum, and then maybe a cup of coffee, or usually like
Hmm.
1 energy drink and then a couple cups of coffee through the day. Spread out, not trying to do it all at once as much as that'd be fun. Um,
Right.
I try to get at least 6 hours. So I've actually looked at studies in that, whether it's just timeline, but also timeline with interrupted sleep. So that's the thing with the fire service, and sleep and rest and recovery is so important. I have to hit everything else pretty much on the dot because when we're on shift and that we get woken up in the middle of the night, my body now is out of that like deep REM sleep. So recovery is different for me as a firefighter to where I know it could be even better. So I have to really nail everything around that sleep aspect besides that, like micronutrients, even other things that are going to help me, where I can find that edge because as a firefighter, I don't get always the best sleep. So what I try to find is consistent sleep. So my body, if I go to bed at this time, essentially like between 10, maybe 10:30 latest, or sometimes I get an early bedtime, 9:30. Um, who would have thought like, oh, I'm tired of staying up super late. I'm an adult now. I'm gonna go to bed early.
Mhm.
I love that. And so I'll take that when I can, but it's usually not very often. Just, life gets a hold of you and then it's like,
Yeah.
okay, 10:30. But then I'm waking up at the same time. So it's consistent. So now my body's at the point where like it will usually just wake me up sometimes. So in prep state, it's always like that. But if I go out of that state and I'm like, okay, I'm going to sleep in a little longer today, it's really hard to get back into that because you throw your circadian rhythm off with your sleep,
Mhm.
and then your body's kind of questioning that wake up clock. So yeah, all this daylight savings happens, and then my body has to reset to that circadian rhythm. So now this week happened, and my body kind of got back to it. I try to get at least back to it before I go back to shift because then it's just easier transitioning into that shift life. And then when you get used to like the fire wake ups in the middle of the night, that was the first like big, I would say, curve of working as a firefighter and getting that ding in the middle of the night and then having to just instantly wake up, I'm awake, having to get up and go. Like it's not great for the heart and stress levels. They found a lot of studies with firefighters that actually causes a lot of uh, stress and that on not only just cumulative through the body, but also the heart, just from that jolt, especially the older you get. So
Mm-hmm.
our department actually is, we're what's a it's not station specific dispatch. So if we get a call, we hear everybody else. If they get a call, like it's say station 5, they get a call. We hear that call that goes through, even if it's for their station. But if I'm at 2, I don't need to go to that call. But I'm still hearing that and all the talk about it. They're actually transitioning to now station specific dispatching, which is going to be phenomenal because of all the, like I said, the research and studies they found out. A lot of departments already have that, but ours are just getting into that, which will be amazing for sleep levels because
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be just one more wake up that I wouldn't get in the middle of the night and half the days I work through the week at the station.
Right. That's awesome. Well, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. It's one of the things I really wanted to, pick your brain about is how to balance all that, being a bodybuilder and being a firefighter at the same time. That's got to be a crazy workload. But another thing I want to ask you about,
Mm-hmm.
we got a few more minutes here. Drumming. Like you said in your logo, it's dumbbells and drumsticks. Where does the drumsticks come in? And do you still currently dabble in drumming, or what does that look like?
So it's always, drumming is always there because I actually, right now, and this has been the base of drumming and that through me, is that when I've drummed in that through the school, through whether it was at Brainerd and at Bethel, I've always done the worship team too. So I drum on our worship team actually at Engaged Church out here, and that's continually keeping me drumming, but also just continually being able to express that worship aspect because that's a huge part of my expression of worship is through music, and I find that I come closer to God through the worship and that with whether it's my hands and the drums or even my voice, but usually it's the hands and the drums are the best aspect of it because that's why I'm not singing and that's why I'm the drummer up there. I will sing in worship, but I'm not going to do that during worship team. So they already know that.
Sure. Well, that's awesome, man. That's another thing we have in common. I do sing on the worship team at my
Nice.
church,
Oh, I
so
love that.
so
Nice.
I totally get that when it comes to worship and having a what my faith looks like and relationship looks like with Christ. There's nothing like it when you're up there singing and
Yep.
feeling the music. It's powerful.
Yeah.
So I totally get that.
Yeah. So yeah, the worship side of things has always been a part of it, and that's what's continually kept me being able to do that. And that's the balance that's been kind of tough because I find a way to drum. I find a way to drum at the church, but also I just hit on things like through the day. I have rhythms going through my mind, and I'll start tapping the couch, and our dog will like run up to the couch because he's all hyped up because I just hyped him up, and Haley's like, "Look what you're doing." I'm like, "What am I?" And I look, and he's just waiting there, like as I'm tapping, getting more hyper. I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't even like, what are you gonna do? Like, I'm ready for it. Whatever it is. It's intense, and I'm ready."
Right.
Um, so I'm always still drumming. It's in my head, but it's in different things.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm able to really just anytime I touch the set, I go back to it, and it's kind of cool to have that muscle memory. But now that we're moving, I had this plan for this room, and that's why I was saying that it would be exciting too. We weren't completely moved in by the time we were going to do this setting, but I have this room set up. We're calling it the throne room, and it's like a drum throne room, but also kind of like a content room too, to be able to do podcasts and stuff like this, and be able to create content for even Haley's side of things with the teachers' videos and
Absolutely.
stuff she makes. But it's cool because now I'll actually have our own house where I'm not on the third floor and going to annoy the neighbors below us with the drumming, but I can actually have my drum set up with soundproofing around the walls, the eggshells, and actually be able to produce some stuff like that. But that's the just what I want to go in and play and be able to express that is different, because like you get your worship set in that, and I love, believe me, don't get me wrong, I love playing all the worship songs that we do, and there's a lot of songs I can connect to. And then there's times too where I'm either up there practicing and I'm just like in my own thing, and then they're like, hey, like I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Like I go into, so I need that time to where like I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna play through like an hour or two of just this style of music. I did jazz band through high school and into college, and just from jazz band to punk to like classic to just classic rock, like all the genres. And I used to be music major before I did biokinetics actually
Hmm.
at Bethel, and that was for percussion performance. So I went through a lot of coaching through Steve Gould, who's drummed through Firefly and Sarah Bareilles. So like a
Okay.
few like great influences from my drumming in that I've really took and taken his styles from and made it my own, just like with bodybuilding, made it my own art form with the drumming side of things. So now that I have that room that I'll be able to at least express that side of things a lot more. So I'm super pumped about that side of things. And I used to do lessons a while back, again, the coaching side of things, but with music, I did a lot of that. But now I'm excited I get to at least dive into that a little bit more on the mix of everything else.
Absolutely. Oh, that's awesome. Maybe we do a collab in the future. Let's start
Seriously.
up a band or
Well,
something and
and I that's something it's always I'm freelance right now. But I always said I was like if there's the right opportunity, the right time again, I'd definitely hop into a band. I was in Last Call, if you remember from Brainerd for a while ago.
yeah.
We went around the area and then we actually dove into the cities and we played at Poorhouse and a few other areas out there that were definitely getting into the realm. And then of course we broke up in that, but you know,
Right.
bridge under or water under the bridge kind of thing. And it's fun. It was amazing, and I loved playing on shows and that every weekend. That was actually a side of my income that was was now done with, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? I'm going to go coach in that side of things, and then
Hmm.
I'm still going to have the drumming, but till next time, whenever the Lord wants it, it's always going to be there, so I can always drum. So
Heck yeah, that's
yeah,
awesome. Well, I got just a couple of quick rapid fire questions for you, and then we'll wrap up here. Still on the same topic of drumming. What's your favorite song to drum to? If you have like one that stands out, you're like, oh,
I
this
instantly
is it.
thought of it. So this was one of them that we covered was actually Everlong by Foo Fighters. So
Okay.
we it was one of the multiple songs that we covered from different genres. So we also had our own EP that we produced as well during that time. So we kind of had our styles kind of mesh for the EP, but then we brought our own sound to these songs and that. But I love the energy during that with Taylor Hawkins on the drums um, in that song. And I'm a very energetic and like kind of a power guy, if that makes sense. Like
Hmm.
very upbeat, very high energy in that. I love that style of drumming and like heavy rhythms, especially because like sometimes like in the gym I'll listen to metalcore. So like some of that, I'm all over the place musically. Like I'm literally like a shuffle playlist on Spotify in my mind with
I'm the same way.
yeah, totally. So it's like someone will ask, what's your favorite style of music? And it's like, okay, I had like 50 different things pop up because it's like, well, this time of year when I feel this way, this is what I'm listening to. And then it's yeah, but favorite song to jump to, I think just the amount of times I played it and just how it every time I hear it come on, I'm like, oh, that song is so fun to play live. And that
Hmm.
that was probably Everyone by Foo Fighters, I would say.
Hmm.
But there's a
Love
lot of
that.
songs I love drumming to. I mean, it's a hard question.
I believe it.
Mhm.
That's cool though. I'm gonna have to. I don't. Obviously, I'm familiar with the Foo Fighters, but I don't know if I'm sure I'll recognize the song when I
It's
hear it.
one you'll
But
hear it and you're like, oh yeah, I do. Yeah, I know.
sweet. Another one. What is your favorite pose in bodybuilding? I don't know a whole lot about it, but I've seen some of your stuff on your content. Which one
Mhm.
do you think brings out the best your best self when you're posing?
Oh man, I love a lot of them. I that is again with music with the poses. So you try to be your best at every angle and then every look that you can, and that's. I think I've gotten to the point. I know that obviously there's stuff that I continually try and grow. Like oh, I could use a little bit more here. I'm at the point though now it's fun to where it's like I look better at these poses where I was like, I don't I'm not as confident with these poses, but now I'm like, okay, which one do you want now? Okay, well we'll hit this pose. Awesome. But I there's like three top poses that I really like is the three-quarter twisting back pose, which is actually called the Arnold pose, which is literally that one where you're just here and then you're going like that down to the side. Um, that one is great because it shows off the thickness of your back, but also the width. And then you can show off that hamstring and that calf as well down on the side. So it's a great look, but it's fun to get into it because you're giving kind of this swing of the
Hmm.
arms and it's more dynamic. But then it's tough because it's like I like the front most muscular, which is like again what it sounds like is the most muscular pose where you're getting like you're getting intense, and then it brings off just that pure mass on stage and intensity. And I love just the big, power side of things with bodybuilding and that's the fun, like energetic look. And that's when guys are like, they'll hit their quad on the ground and then they just get super loud in that on stage. And that's usually the last pose because you're spent at that point, and the judges typically do that as the last pose. But now in the pro divisions, it's like they'll have you hit a most muscular, but we're going to keep going through rotations because we want to see some more. So then you're like, I just spent a lot with this one pose. And then you're continually, it's an endurance sport too. It's like,
I believe it.
A lot of weird, stuff that you wouldn't notice until you get up there and try to hold and strain your muscles to the level to give that look to them on stage. And then the rear lat spread. I love the rear lat spread because it gives the thickness, but also the width of the back, but you get good hamstring and leg development to show out too in that one. So those three I usually kind of pick as like, I really like these ones because they give the best composition that I can show in three poses.
Absolutely.
There's always, situational where it's like, I kind of want to hit this one because I see that this guy's hitting this pose. Okay, I'm gonna go hit this pose too with him. We're gonna have fun with it because that's a competitive aspect of it. So it's also presenting yourself to the judges at your best. So usually you show them your top 5 poses, but if you can get better and better with every poses, that's obviously an advantage for a bodybuilder. So you always try to be better at those weak points because that's how you just get better and better every time.
Heck yeah. Awesome. Then the last question I got for you, and I don't want to put you on the spot or anything, but Bible verse. You talked about your faith a little bit throughout this whole thing.
Yep.
What is your favorite Bible verse and why?
So I really like, I did a study, Romans, the Roman Road, and Romans 10:9 has always stuck out to me, and that is, for if you believe and you declare that Jesus is Lord and that God sent his son to die for us in our sins, then you will be saved. And it talks about it before where it says, this is the pure essence of our faith. And it truly it sums everything up in a quick synopsis, I would say, of just the gritty bare bones of, if you do this, then this is the result. And I truly believe, as it says, when we declare Jesus is Lord and that he was sent here as God, as 3 parts, and from God himself sending his son to die for us and on the cross for our sins, then we'll be saved. And people try to complicate things, in religion especially. So, I'm not religious, but I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, because that, when you go by the faith aspect of it, not like, okay, I'm going to complete and check these boxes and that's all I got to do. It's not faith. We're not perfect. We can't be the perfect being that Jesus was coming,
right,
and laying his life, because he truly was sinless. So he died for all of our sins, which we all know we're sinners. We're not perfect, but that example of that is really motivating, because it's like, it's reassuring that when you mess up and when you go through these hardships in life, and especially as no believer is perfect, you're going to have sin in your life and that, but you're not sinless, but you sin less as you get older, and you get more knowledgeable, of course, of the Bible, because you're diving into the Word, which I'm a lot better than what I used to be, we'll say, and that I feel like is great to have those verses, like you said, what that favorite verse is, to just remember that. Yep, I'm. This is my acknowledgement that you died for my sins, and I'm saved because of that. Nothing can take that away from me. And you'll actually see me when I do go on stage, and that bodybuilding can be kind of like a very selfish sport, but you can make it selfless. Really, at its essence, it is selfless. But you have to go away from the egotistic side of things. And one thing I like to do is, obviously, I thank the judges in that, but I'll point up to the Lord, because I thank him every time, because it's for him that I'm competing, but also he's the reason that I am at where I am in life, and just on being able to step onto this stage. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him and the Creator. So I always give that reminder, not only to those that are watching, but just myself. So it's an acknowledgement of faith, to declare that he is Lord, not only just outwardly in society, but just in my own heart too. So.
Amen, brother. And I'm sure even when you're going to a call, whether it's a big fire or you're about to go see something or deal with something that, maybe your life could be in jeopardy going to that call, to have that verse that you lean on could maybe bring some of that off the table. Like, all right, well, here we go. Lord, you are Lord. here I go. I'm going. I've been called to this fire, or whatever the situation is, and
Yeah.
may your will be done through it.
Amen. Yeah. And that's the one. There's no greater love than to lay your life down for a brother. That is, something that you hear in the first responder realm quite a bit, and just seeing as those that died for us going abroad to fight foreign wars and that, and that just even here, those that have died just sacrificing their life, for their world, their family, and that, like 9/11 happening, those firefighters, all police, everybody that went to that instance and laying their life down. There's no greater love than that, and that's the example of Jesus dying for us. So it's something that you have to always have in the back of your mind, but that knowing that call that Jesus has put in your mind, in your life, and that to do something like that is it's encouraging, because it is a dangerous atmosphere. Any call could go any which way, as from law enforcement and that, and you do know from correctional officer side of things, and that
Mhm.
that is something to have and know that no weapon formed against me shall prosper. And that's something that I love that one, because it's like, okay, these traps are set to ensnare me. Lord's already watching those snares before they happen. And that situational awareness was, as a first responder, is important, but also God has that little extra edge where it's like the stuff we can't see in that. Sometimes he brings to light, and you get a little bit of like, oh, yeah, I didn't see that until now. And you have those brothers around you where it's like people will keep you. It's a team aspect. Firefighting is truly a team aspect going in to do something. So it's like you have to achieve this task, and you have everybody looking which way, making sure that all the angles are getting touched. So knowing that I can trust the brothers around me, and that's something that is very valuable. And I love that about firefighting, the camaraderie aspect, as you talked about earlier.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Man, what a beautiful episode. It's been an awesome pleasure to be able to chat with you. I feel like I know you more as a man, and I really appreciate it. I feel like you're one of those guys that I could lean on to be sharpened whenever I need it. So,
I like
thanks
that.
again for hopping on here, man. I really do appreciate it. Where can people find you? This is your chance to plug your
Yeah,
stuff, and
yeah.
where can
Well,
we
shameless plug.
keep up with you?
So I am right now. Instagram is pretty much my biggest outreach, but I haven't linked to my Facebook. But I'm trying to dive more into Facebook. I kind of had some inactivity, but it is at Dumbbells and Drumsticks. Dumbbells and Drumsticks. The sticks at the end is not CKS; it's an X. So
Got it.
STIX at the end, all one word. And you can follow my bodybuilding, drumming, coaching, firefighting, all of that mixed into one. And just I try to be encouraging too, as you saw that video on there. I try to give motivational talk as well when I can, and I just have something come up, whether it's during prep or just life. I try to sharpen others, and I really you're as well. Like I like that what you're doing too, to sharpen others, because I know I can lean on you too to be able to look at. I can go to you to be able to sharpen that. So like I said, I listened to that first podcast. I'm really looking forward to what you do with this, and I'd love to be a part of it again. And I feel like we could talk for hours. So like
I know.
there's so much content here that could go on, and like I know that we're both kind of like bouncing off of ideas. So I'm sure we could have made like 3 to 5 episodes just tonight if we had the time for it.
100%. I agree. Like we got to 40 minutes. I'm like, man, we're
I
almost at
know.
an hour, and I want to keep going.
I was looking at it too, and I was like, oh, man, I got to get back on track, because I just bounce, and so but I love that. That's how we sharpen each other. So it's fun to be
Absolutely.
able to talk back and forth like this.
It's authentic. It
Yeah.
really is authentic. It's not scripted by any means. We
No,
start riffing, and
I
it's
got
a
nothing in front. I mean, it's literally just me, this ghost, my phone will be dogs, and all these is that now we're gonna move on Friday.
right. Awesome, man. Well, like I said, it's been a pleasure. We'll for sure do this again sometime. You'll be on here in the future, and like I said, I love to collab with you any way that we can, to reach as many people as we can, because I think God has put similar callings on our lives to do that. So
Awesome, but
again, Nick Schwen, I appreciate you, man. This has been episode 2 of the Iron Purpose podcast. Peace out, everybody.